Hey everyone, welcome to Piano Lessons with Elvin. Today we're going to be working on how to make major chords on all locations on the piano. I hope you enjoy this video. Feel free to rewind and stop and all that kind of stuff just so you can really get these concepts in. I'll show you some nice tips that we can do to find them easily. So yeah, without further ado here, let me just grab the camera. Wow, what amazing production value, huh? Okay, so I'm assuming you guys already know how to find the notes. That was my first video here. So if we just start with middle C here, called middle, because whoa, it's in the middle. Who would have thought? And if we just stick with this note here, to me the best way to think of major chords will be to break down one concept of half steps, whole steps. If we think of half steps, the easiest way I explain it is it's just two notes with no note in between. That's the half step. So there's no note in between. There's a half step. There's a half step. Just like fractions, we could think half plus half equals a whole. And that's the other piece of this. It's pretty much, you can just think of everything we're doing in music consists of some form of a collection of half steps and whole steps. Let's just kind of think about that as almost like the DNA block to it. So a half step, once again, no note in between. These are all half steps. A whole step is this here. Here's one. And I'll just show it about how it's kind of like a fraction in the sense of half plus a half equals a whole. Or an even easier way to think about that, because who likes math, am I right? Is a whole step always has one note in between. So here there's one note in between. Here, there's one note in between. I know this looks like a whole step because it's two white keys like these were, but let's just stick to that first principle here of, is there a note in between? No, there is not. So this will be a half step. Half steps have no note in between. It doesn't always have to be white. We can combine it here. So here's two black keys. Would this be a whole step? Pause the video and find out. Just kidding. So, jeez, my jokes are horrible. So this would be a whole step because in between we have a note. And if we wanted to go back to the fraction route, we could think half plus a half equals a whole. Here's another whole step, a combo of black and white, which is totally cool because there's one note in between. That's the big factor here. Here I'm going to completely switch it, black white to white black, but this rule still applies. There's one note in the middle. So there's whole steps. Here's a half step, no note in the middle. Here's a half step, no note in the middle. So please keep that in mind, what whole steps and half steps are, because that's how we'll talk about major chords. So the way I like to talk about major chords, I'm going to play kind of the first one everyone learns on piano called C major, is what it consists of in terms of whole steps or half steps. Lots of times I like to break it down first, just with half steps, because it's an easier method to kind of double check yourself, because you can just count endless, it's just harder to skip over notes because you know there's always going to be no note in between. So here's a major chord. Let's figure out the amount of half steps between these first two. So we have here to here, one half step, here to here, two half steps, three half steps, four half steps. Cool, and that's always going to be true no matter what. Like I said, that's the DNA. That is the formula as one half of the major chord. If there's not four half steps between the first two notes, you will not be making a major chord. That will be a different thing. Then let's get to the next bit here. So from second note to third note, let's count the half steps. 1, 2, 3. 3 half steps. Now, if we want to really feel comfortable, in theory, that's all we need to do to get any major chord is we start on a note, count 4 half steps up. 1. Note that I always start on the note I am on as 1. This doesn't start as 0. We always start with this as 1. Some people will kind of think 0, 1, 2. But it's always going to be 1, 2, 3, just as a little aside. So here to here, 1 half step, 2, 3, 4. Cool. I found my first half of the chord. Now for the next note, this to the next note, I need 3 half steps. 1, 2, 3. There we go. And that makes a major chord. Now, I said a second ago, if you want to be really certain of yourself, let's measure bottom note to top note. This will consist, let's see here, the amount of half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we could think bottom note to top note has 7 half steps, bottom to middle, 4 half steps, middle to top, 3 half steps. Now I could get into more specific terms of how this is called a perfect fifth, this is a major third, this is a minor third, but that won't really help us right now. I don't want to inundate you with too much theory knowledge if it's not pertinent right now. These are beginner level stuff here. So I'm just going to go to, let's see, this note. This one is cool, and we'll just, I'm going to call this a G sharp, or we could call it an A flat, and even if you don't understand sharps or flats, who cares right now? The a priori principle still maintains. We need to count 4 half steps and then 3 half steps. So we'll start here. This starts as 1. Here's half step 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. So here we go. Now, second note to find the final note is 3 half steps. 1, 2, 3. There's a 3 half steps. So now we'll combine them. Now if I wanted to double check myself, remember bottom to top will always have 7 half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Cool. So there's another major chord. We could call this A flat major or G sharp major. And you'll kind of notice they have a similar sound. I'll do one more location here for you guys. Let's do this one. Same kind of idea, 4 half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. Now, from this second note to the top, we need 3 half steps. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So this one I'd call E major. Now, there's one other thing you could do here. Now, okay, I'm going to turn around for a second. Now, the one thing that's nice with doing this particular approach is the formula is always true. That's always what it's going to be. The formula of making a major scale never changes. If it changes, it's not a major scale. Kind of like the D, NA of mi is always going to be the same, like that won't ever change, and it's good to kind of get that term down. A minor chord is a different thing from a major chord. It has a specific formula to make it minor, diminished chord, augmented. There's all these types of chords, and they have a specific DNA that makes them that way. So a major chord will always be, first to middle note, 4 half steps, middle to the third note, 3 half steps. And it works no matter what location you're at on the piano, no matter if it's a combo of black keys and white, whatever. If you stay true to that, you'll always find a major chord. Now, one thing that is a nice exercise just to kind of build your muscle memory with it, because this is more of a mental assertion here. And it's really good for your comprehension to know why things are the way they are instead of just doing rote playing, like those videos that just show color streaming. That works great, but you don't know what you're doing. So not having any comprehension only takes you so far. But I am going to show you kind of a nice way to play every possible major chord you can do, just to kind of train that muscle memory for yourself too. So just keep in mind that you already know the formula for how to create them, and here's a cool way to just do all of them. So I'll start with, let's just say here, once again, if you wanted to pause or whatever, you could count that there is 4 half steps here and there are 3 half steps here. If I take this and keep this mold, keep this pattern, and just shift everything up accordingly the same amount, bring everything up a half step, up a half step, up a half step, there is another major chord. And of course it will be major because we're keeping intact the structure of the major chord, and just everything is moving up the same amount so that structure will be maintained. So there's a major chord, we just keep doing that. Up another half step to get to this one, up another half step, everything goes up to the next note. Remember, half steps have no note in between. And these shapes, some of these are going to be pretty hard for you and weird feeling, and that's okay. Like this, look at how my hands are. This feels even weird to me now. I wouldn't be doing this fingering, I'm just doing it so you can see. I'd probably be doing something like this, but we're going to keep that intact. Half step up, half step up, half step up. Cool, there's the next one. I'm just going to kind of go quick through them. And the name of them will be the name of what's on the bottom. So I could call this C major, C sharp, major, D, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G, sharp A sharp B, C. Going back down, and I'm always maintaining the same exact structure again of the chord. Because if I change anything about the major chord formula, let's say I do this becomes C minor, which I'll do a different video on. And notice immediately the DNA of it has changed. This note to this note, 1, 2, 3. Now there's 3 half steps. Now from middle to top, 1, 2, 3, 4. It really reversed itself. It went from 3 to 4. Major chord has 4 half steps to 3. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I really want to drill that in your head, because some people will not know why. Why is this white, black, black? Why is this one 3 black keys? Why is this one black key in the middle? Why is this one all white? And it seems arbitrary, but the formula is always the same. 4 half steps between first and middle, 3 half steps from middle to top. So don't get so bogged down by the visual image or how awkward certain chords can feel. Just for now, to me, the biggest thing is that comprehension. Keep in mind that structure, and you'll always be able to find every major chord. I recommend doing this with both hands, just because, you have to get awesome with both hands on piano. There tends to be a bias with right hand because most people are right-handed, and that has the melody. But future you, lots of times the left hand will end up doing chords. So just make sure you get both hands practicing this up here, and you can try that tip where you find one mold and just keep shifting up a half step, and you'll play every major chord you can. But yeah, so there's my little quick lesson on making major chords on piano. I hope you enjoy that, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.